Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTB World and are watching World this morning alongside Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. We definitely hope that everybody out there is doing great. You know, Ramadan is going super. But then at the same time, I think I actually need to ask my colleague whether she's doing fine or not. Hello, Shiza. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm doing absolutely great. What about you?
Well, thank you very much for asking this question. I think that, you ask this question every day, and every day I have a different answer to that. So today, well, I don't know whether I should say it or not.
Okay.
But I think that my sleeps actually started to kick in as well, because one way or the other, I'm not able to catch up on my sleep. And, eventually when you wake up for seher and then, you go back to bed and then there's a little bit of indigestion.
Right.
So I was having trouble sleeping right after seher, after offering my prayer. So, today I just couldn't sleep, and then I had to come to work just like that as well. So I'm thinking, or probably it's just in my head that, I need to sleep. And does it happen to you that, in your head, if you, cheat that, okay, probably if I'm going to tell myself that I've slept enough, it won't affect me or, something of that sort. Does it happen to you?
Absolutely. It does happen all the time. And should I tell you, when I know that I absolutely have just few hours to sleep, I stop looking at the time on my phone and just pretend I have 8 hours and it's going to be the best sleep of my life. And it is psychological. It does help.
It does help as well. But then other than that, Shiza, there's one thing which I wanted to ask you that, before Ramadan, it's been more than a year, I think, that we have been doing the show together as well, that you were very habitual of having a cup of coffee, early in the morning. So in Ramadan, obviously, you cannot have a cup of coffee, because you're fasting. So don't you feel a little different, or do you think that you've accustomed to the change?
No, it is definitely different. I feel like for all the people out there watching our show as well, you can tell the difference. The energy is definitely low, but I'll tell you what. So right after Sari, I feel like we do have quite some time to sleep before we come for the show, right? So I sleep some hours, but I wake up earlier than I did usually. And 8 seconds away, the gym is situated 8 seconds away from my room. So I just spend my time there doing, I don't know, just warming up and waking up, because I can't have coffee when I'm fasting, right?
Exactly.
So that works for me.
But, I want to build up on that, because the festivities of Ramadan is, for me, it's all about being with family, aftar, then dinners and then sehers. And then, since it's going to be summer vacations in a few days as well.
Can't wait.
So all my sisters are going to come to our place as well. And, but other than that, there's this debate which is actually going on at my place. And that is that, so I asked my mother whether I can brush, for example, after seher, while I'm fasting and during the day, because there's this scent which you can feel, during Ramadan as well. And then my mother is like, you cannot brush, it'll probably break your fast. And then there's these very common problems has been, for example, if I had a pimple and I've busted it, so there's a little bit of blood or peep, so whether my fast is still going to be considered as a fast or not, so things like these, ladies and gentlemen, are very common in every household as well.
Absolutely. And these are some of the questions that even we have asked among our families as well. And one more thing, whenever we hear the siren that goes off in the Sehri time, so after we hear it and while the adhan is going on, my mom's like, go have water quickly. Are we supposed to have water by then? I'm not really sure.
Well, on this, the only thing which I know is that, in the olden times, whenever we refer to that, I think that, whenever the prayer was actually announced, I think, or the prayer was being said, or azan was being made, I think that was the time when actually everybody broke their fast too as well, and that's the right way to do it. You're not supposed to do it on a bhopu. Please make sure that you remember that as well.
So, Shahzad, I feel like these are all the questions that we need to ask a religious scholar to get all the right answers. And for that purpose, ladies and gentlemen, again, we have been graced by the presence of Mr. Imran Sandhu, who happens to be a religious scholar. And also, Shahzad likes to call him an accountant.
Chartered accountant.
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the show. Again.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, Imran Sahib, you've actually heard it out. We've said it out loud as well. These are most common problems which everybody faces probably in every Ramadan. These questions are the same as well. So let's start from the basic. As Shiza said, that are we supposed to, maintain or probably look out or break our fast at the time when the siren is being, turned on, or when the prayer is being called?
Definitely, it's the siren is the basic thing.
Okay.
Prayer, when the azan starts to come into your ears, so that is a time when you are allowed to pray.
Okay.
So it's important for us, and it's obligatory on us that whenever the sign of, like, you hear the azan, or in some cases where siren is being replaced by azan, you should stop eating right away.
Okay, I think that's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to be careful about it because you want to do it properly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, should we move on?
Yeah,
to the next
so I want to
question?
move on. So, first things first, the last debate I had with my sisters and my mother was that, that they couldn't, well, I don't know. So, they say that you cannot make wudu or ablution if you have nail polish on.
Yes.
So, do you think that that's correct or you can still continue with that?
That is correct.
So, you have to remove the nail polish first.
Yeah, because this thing inside this keeps dry.
Okay.
So the rule is that you have to wash your hands.
Right, right.
So because the inside of the nail keeps dry and it's not washable while nail polish is on.
Yeah.
But it's not the case with henna.
Okay, mainly.
So if you have henna on your nail polish, then the wuzu is valid.
Oh, okay. So, you're very right. Of course, you are right indeed. And, since we are talking about nail polishes, there's a company, there's a Muslim entrepreneur who started a company who's making breathable nail polishes. So that actually the chemicals that they are using allows the water to cross into the enamel of your nail and, wash it for wuzu.
And how is it possible though?
It is possible. It's also being tested and people are using it as well.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
one
great.
day I will review it on the show. So moving on. So my next question is, a lot of people have asked me this when I told them I'm going to ask you questions. Can we use inhaler while we're fasting?
Inhaler is not supposed to be used.
Okay.
But if there is a
Emergency?
and there's a life threat, then you can use that.
So we can still
And the
continue
fast
with
still
the
goes
fast?
on? Yeah.
The fast would not go on.
Okay.
It is going to become a, the fast is going to open right away. But then you'll have to do the qaza of that fast.
Okay. And what's that? How do we do that?
Yeah.
So qaza is after the Ramadan, you may want to go and choose
Fast
a day
again.
and fast again. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
but
so
other than
Samuel,
that, for people who cannot actually fast,
Yeah, that was my question.
how can they probably do the qaza?
Definitely, who cannot fast, they would, if there is an illness that is ongoing, permanent, chronic illness that stops them to, make fast, and the chronic illness stops them because it becomes danger for the life to fast. So, they can give fidya.
Wow, okay.
And when they recover from that chronic illness in their life, then they start keeping the fast.
So, for example, if somebody is actually given the fidya, even then they're supposed to fast if they get better?
Yeah.
Supposed to be?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the terms of fidya? I mean, how much is it, are we supposed to give away? For example, if somebody is missed out on 2 fasts, or 3 fasts, or 4
And
fasts.
who are the people we should give it to?
There are different, benchmarks.
Okay.
The normal benchmark for a common average man is 2 kgs of wheat.
Okay,
Or
2
the
kg.
price equivalent to 2 kgs of wheat.
Okay.
But it's always better nowadays, because the barter system is no more there, that give the money equivalent to 2 kgs of wheat, so that it gives them a freedom how to spend that money.
Right, they
that's
can
great.
invest it anywhere they want,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So moving on, you mentioned about bleeding before we started the show. Sometimes you do get an injury or again, you have probably a pimple or something that you pop and it starts bleeding. We have often heard that you cannot continue with your fast. Is it true?
Where is the pimple on somewhere outside, then it would not break the fast.
Okay.
The fast is going to continue.
And if
as
there's
is.
bleeding inside the mouth, for example?
So the fast would not break if you do not, if the bleeding is, more than, this much.
Yeah.
This much,
Okay.
if you swallow that, the fast would break, and then there's not going to be a kafara, but there's going to be a qaza.
All right.
However, if the bleeding is very little, and you feel a little taste, the fast is not going to break.
All right.
Okay.
And now I want to ask about that, a lot of times I've seen people, that they're fasting and then they go to the gym. First things first, I want to know that, do you think that, for people who actually opt to go to the gym while they're fasting is a good thing to do?
Yep.
First things first.
get thirsty.
And then the second part is that, when they work out so much, a few of them do vomit, so, and then they want to move on with their fast as well. So God forbid if you vomit, do you think that, the fast is going to continue, or it's gone?
Depending upon the how you have vomited. Sometimes a little bit of tastes reverts back. There's a reflux. In that case, the fast is not. But if you vomit with your mouth full, then the fast is broken, and then you'll have to go for qaza.
All right. So, Santu Sahib, there are some patients, again, blood pressure patients who can, sometimes they're not able to fast, but they really want to, so they do anyway. Is it okay to keep the blood pressure medicine that you just have to put on your tongue while you're fasting? Because you're not swallowing it, right?
No, because that has to go in as a medicine.
Yeah. One way or another.
Anything, if if the medicine reaches the throat, the fast is going to open automatically. Because this is a life-threatening situation. The kafara is not going to come over. And you know what is kafara? You have to fast 60 days without this is a kafara. But the qaza is going to come, that you have to replace that fast with a fast outside of Ramadan.
Okay, and then
except for the 2 Eid days.
All right. And then I've seen that, a lot of people, since it's summer, so what they do is that even when it's not prayer time, they'll go and they'll probably gargle their mouth, come outside and feel a little better. So I don't know whether they skip or probably sip in a little as well.
Gargling poses a threat that, the thing is, you don't have to take anything into the throat. And while you gargle, the water goes inside your throat.
Okay, so if we're not even gargling, if we take in water, just squish it a little and just throw it out.
No, it would not harm the fast, but there's a chance that if you, because you are quite thirsty, if something goes inside of your throat, then because the intention is not there, so it is going to be makruh. It's not recommended.
And usually, and usually in the initial days, what I've seen is that people forget that they were fasting, so they'll eat something and then they'll get to know, I was fasting. So what does our religion say about that?
Forgetfulness is forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so since we were talking about gargles.
And one more thing, sorry. If you see someone, a weak person like yourself, a healthy person like yourself, then we should, remind him. But if you see somebody is very weak, and he's not well as well, and if he by accident, he forgets and eat, don't remind him. Just wait till he.
Till he remembers it himself.
Okay, perfect. So since we were talking about gargles, what about toothpaste? I mean, we know that you can use a toothbrush without a toothpaste even during your fasting, but with a toothpaste, can we? Again, we're not swallowing it, right?
Yeah, we are not swallowing it, but ulama have a consensus on this, that you start feeling taste in your throat. So they have written to make you safer, that you refrain from using toothpaste while you are fasting. The way to use the toothpaste is that you do it just before the adhan. When you start entering the fast. But if one uses the toothpaste and it does not goes inside of the throat, it is makruh, but not haram.
Okay, and since again I absolutely forgot my question. Do you have a question?
Yeah, obviously I do have a question. So now what I wanted to ask was that there is a lot of people who have this misconception, and they say that you cannot cut your nail, you cannot cut your hair while you're fasting. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
I've never heard that.
So that's not correct. But now I want to move on to a very serious conversation. Very sorry. And you'll have to be very careful with your words too as well. So for all those people who are married, so in Ramadan, there's this break on intimacy as well. So to what length do you think that those couples can go, and where do you think that they really actually need to be stopped or stop if in case they want to move on with the fasting?
Sharia, asking questions of Sharia has no shame. It's just like knowledge.
Exactly.
When
That's why I've asked
you go and take knowledge on medical sciences, then the shame factor has to be put aside. So that's a good question. Now this is quite relative to different people. Some people have more control over themselves, and some people have very less control. So if a person has no control over himself, or the couple has no control over them, then it's better to refrain from even kissing each other.
Okay.
So, you know, this intimacy to the level of kissing, you know, or, you know, going close to each other is allowed, but, you know, over and above this is makruh.
Okay, while you're fasting. What about dental appointments? I mean, there are days, one of my sister has braces and she really wants to fast, but then again, she has her appointments and she has to get fillings and things done, to which the doctor recommends not to fast. Can we, though?
If a doctor is recommending not to fast,
yeah.
Then there is an option available.
Okay.
But I would still say that, you know, one should plan these things beforehand.
Ahead of time.
Because, you know, Ramadan comes once in a year.
And we're anticipating it since so long, right?
Yeah, and, you know, the level of, you know, benefits that you get out of Ramadan are far more than, you know, waiting for a procedure that does not threaten you for life.
Exactly.
So I would just say that try to plan it in a better way, and try to find a doctor who works after, you know.
Got it.
Because, you know, it is not a matter of halal and haram always, you know, but it's a matter of, you know, availing an opportunity as well.
Okay.
And I think that's
and
great as well.
prioritizing too.
Yeah, but towards the end, before we wrap up this segment, I'm going to put all of these things into one question I'm going to ask him.
Okay.
Oh my God.
So, what about people who abuse while they're fasting? What about people who lie? What about people who push and fight? What about people who road rage? What about people who litter? Do you think that they're still fasting because they're doing all of those things which I think one should not do anyways?
Yeah.
You know, what breaks a fast is eating, or, you know, having an injection, you know, injection in the brain or in the stomach.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it breaks. Injection without into this, you know, flesh does not break the fast. You can have as many injections.
So for people who living with diabetes, do you think that they, you know, they inject insulin a lot? So does it break their fast?
They would not do it while they're fasting.
Yeah, because obviously, you know, they're not eating.
Yeah, so definitely it's not going to happen.
Okay.
But, you know, injecting anything into the flesh does not break the fast.
Okay.
In the veins it does.
So my question is for what about for somebody who abuses on daily basis while they're fasting?
So other than this, any activity that is that does not affect your, you know, throat, eating activity and, you know, medical activity, you know, any activity like these activities do not, you know, have any, you know, on the validity of the fast.
Okay.
But definitely, you know, while fasting, when you do these things, the sin of that is multiplied. As you know, if you do a good deed, that is going to, but the sin is also going to be multiplied.
While you're fasting. Okay.
Okay, which makes me think of, you know, that there are people, you know, they talk a lot of, for example, we've talked about, you know, using abusive language as well. And then there are people who are habitual of using or probably watching explicit content as well while they're fasting. Do you think that that's forbidden too as well?
That is a very, very bad habit. One must refrain it while fasting and while not fasting. That's such a bad habit. It's a great grave sin.
Okay.
And if you are such an habitual, you should go to a doctor or an alim and ask him the way to creep out of it.
Okay.
And while fasting, its sin is going to be multiplied again.
Okay. And,
Okay, but
and you know, just one more thing, you
no
know,
problem.
from the boys' point of view as well, because a lot of people have written to me and they've said that, you know, please ask Maulana Saab. Well, I mean, it's a stupid question to ask, but I'm still going to ask it, whether we can smoke while fasting or not. I mean, so I don't know, you know, I've put it out there as well. There are people who actually think that you can smoke because we're not eating anything, you know, there's nothing which is going into the belly and things like that.
Okay.
So please go ahead, you know, talk to all of those people who send in these kind of questions.
Quit smoking even when you are not fasting, because it is prone to cancer and big diseases. And when you are fasting, you must not smoke.
Exactly.
Wow, okay, beautiful. So now this question is probably not religious, but it does happen to everyone who's fasting. You know, when you're getting closer to iftar time, and especially for women who are working in the kitchen for iftari, looking at all those things and, you know, cannot wait for iftar time at all. How should we, you know, observe sabr at that particular time?
Yeah, think of the Jannah that you are going to get.
Wow.
Think of the heavens, the rewards that you are going to get.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the best way to, if somebody really is patient over those things, the reward multiplies.
Wow.
All right.
So many times you've got a good opportunity to earn more reward.
Oh,
Exactly.
nice.
And now I've got a very tricky question,
Okay.
Maulana Sahab. So be careful, you know, when you answer.
Again.
So the question is, so what happens while you're fasting? Obviously, you're being very careful about the fact that you're not going to lie.
Yeah.
You're not going to abuse anybody. You're not going to be angry with someone. But then there comes a situation which you think can be life-threatening for somebody else, and you might have to lie on that situation. Do you think that's allowed? Do you think that you can do that to avoid that situation for somebody else and for your own self by lying
Yeah,
while you're fasting?
So hypothetically speaking, asking this question, I'll answer hypothetically.
Sure.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
you
perfect.
can.
Go ahead. Answer
Yes,
it.
he said yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Okay, so we can probably. But ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you do not take this answer to your advantage.
Yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
there needs to be a situation of such sort where you think that it can be life-threatening and that can cause a problem, and that problem can never be settled. Only then, probably,
Right.
and then even then, you have to be wiser. Or if you can just keep quiet, I think that'll be better too.
You know,
as well.
Yeah, silence is the best
sometimes, there is a way out as well.
Okay.
There are certain statements that you can, to avoid the threat.
Okay.
You can use those statements that cannot be, termed as a lie.
Yeah.
It has double meanings. You can use those statements as
Okay.
well.
And very quickly, one more thing, that is that, for example, in Ramadan, when you're fasting, obviously, you offer your prayers as well 5 times a day. And then in between, you do get time from ibadah as well. Do you think that, one can watch a film or, I mean, obviously
sort of
listening to music is
entertainment.
different, but film or documentaries or something of that sort to keep themselves entertained?
Watching anything on television will depend upon the content.
Okay.
If the content is explicit, it's against the Sharia, do not watch it.
Okay.
And if it is not against the Sharia, you can go ahead and watch it without any, problem.
Amazing that is. Thank you very much, Sandhu Saab, for being with us. It was wonderful to have you over here. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to head out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when you guys will come back, we are going to talk about economics and health.
Wow.
Well, how does it work? We'll figure it out. Good morning.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to Well This Morning with Shahzad Khan and Shiza Hashmi after a very short break, ladies and gentlemen. In the first segment, we definitely assisted you and ourselves in understanding some of the myths sometimes, or some of the misconceptions that we have about fasting.
Or the rulings of fasting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these were some very minor things that we didn't know about. We wanted to make sure of, and we had a religious scholar. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about health economy.
Yeah.
So health economy is basically, utilizing your resources, available resources efficiently to get the maximum health benefits out of that. And for that specific purpose, we've been joined by someone who happens to be a health economist in Pakistan. She is the first researcher in Pakistan, probably even in South Asia. We'll definitely ask her to pull off a research on cancer patients who have, spent so much money on their treatment and are still doing that, and the catastrophic impacts that it has on their lives. I mean, in terms of, their economic status, and also sometimes it even pushes them below poverty line.
Exactly, because over here in Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, treatment such like cancer, for example, is very expensive. And I think for everybody who's actually doing very well in life, God forbid if they get into a problem of such sort, they can probably be pushed down towards the poverty line as well,
Right.
because of the expenditures they'll have to go through, because of the fact that this is a fatal disease. And I think that every hospital is actually capitalizing on these diseases as well, because one
Right.
way or the other you cannot actually get it treated in any other hospital for example, let alone be the public sector as well. You know, you definitely first priority is to go to a private hospital to get it treated, so that they give priority as well. But other than that, you know, why does it have an impact on us in such a way where we actually move down a status class as well, or probably down the poverty line? I mean, all of these things, you know, she actually happens to be a researcher as well. She just submitted her thesis based on these topics as well. And I think for the very first time on our show, we are actually going to talk about health economy.
Right.
And because recently, I think in the PTI's government, what they've done well is that they've given out the Sehat card as well, which is actually going to get them the allowance of 700,000 rupees as well within one hospital. So imagine that you can get yourself treated, and
Annually,
I think that
right?
it is a matter of relaxation as well for somebody that, you know, not a lot of money of their own is actually going to be spent.
Right,
So a
right.
great initiative by the PTI government. I think that it definitely needs to get a big round of applause as well, you know, because people do feel
Commendable.
relaxed.
Right.
But without any further ado, on my right-hand side to talk about health economy, ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by somebody who is a health economist herself. She's none other than Ms. Zainab Amir. Hello, assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum salam, fine, thank
Absolutely
you.
perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. But let us know, what is health economy?
Yeah.
Health economics is basically allocation of resources in the health sector.
Okay.
What is the demand and supply? What is the demand regarding the patients, and what is the supply regarding the federal government,
Yeah.
Okay.
which provides towards the citizens of the country.
Right.
Amazing.
So it must include the number of hospitals that, you know,
Yes.
the government builds, and what
Yeah.
instruments as well. Please tell us all the things that
It's
come under this.
basically regarding the epidemic that
Okay.
is spread in the country, like communicable disease, non-communicable diseases, and what are the medical requirements for the patients that has to be provided by the federal government.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What
Yeah.
are those requirements?
The requirements are basically the general practitioners, doctors, medical instruments, pharmaceutical companies that are basically manufacturing the drugs and everything
Okay.
like that. It involves
Okay.
all of those things.
Perfect. So Zainab, now I want to, you know, talk in detail about the research work that you did. First of all, it's amazing, mashallah. Please correct me. You're the first person in Pakistan to do this, right?
Yes, in
Specifically
Pakistan,
on this topic,
specifically
right?
in this topic, there has been research work in cancer, but
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 not-
it hasn't been done regarding the catastrophic impact that a household would suffer regarding the cancer costs.
So
Okay,
let's
so-
talk about
yeah.
that. You know, where do you think that anybody or the family is actually going to suffer if, God forbid, they have somebody who's actually got cancer?
Yeah,
Basically,
because you, I'm sorry to cut you, but you have, because like first-hand information, right? You were dealing with public hospitals, 3 major public hospitals,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And then you were in direct contact with the patients over there, and you
Yes.
were hearing their stories. So tell
Yes.
us the real picture.
basically what happened was I selected 3 hospitals in Islamabad and Rawalpindi territory,
Okay.
which was Noori, PIMS, and CMH.
Okay, okay.
And firstly, I did my pilot survey. After that pilot survey, I developed a questionnaire. And what happened was that I basically targeted a sample population which was from a poor status of the
Okay.
whole population.
Okay.
Okay. And what happened was that
Yeah, please go on.
what happened was that those poor people didn't had enough capacity to pay and the ability to pay for their healthcare expenditures.
Okay.
And what
Okay.
happened was that when their disposable income was not covering the medical expenditures, basically it exceeded the 40%. 40% is the threshold of catastrophic impact.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And when that threshold is surpassed, the financial protection of the household gets disturbed.
Right.
And they
obviously.
have to sell off their assets in order to cope with those medical expenditures.
All right.
How
And so
sad
then
is
what
that?
were the solutions which you came up with? I mean, what do you think that the people are supposed to do if it's having an impact? And that to a catastrophic one.
The catastrophic impact was there because there wasn't any health insurance.
Okay.
Okay, so
Health
let's talk
insurance-
about the health insurance status in Pakistan right now.
That
Do we
was
have
targeting the
facility?
poor population.
Do we have any such facility?
When I was doing
Researching,
my
yeah.
survey and research, most of them were not entitled.
Okay.
Okay.
They were very poor and they weren't entitled. And those who were entitled was from Baitul Mal. And
Okay.
it was a very small percentage.
So then, God forbid, I'm very sorry that I have to use these words, but unfortunately, I think for people who once they sell their assets as well, and God forbid if they do not get well, eventually they'll end up dying as well. So, you know, we're losing a lot of people. Well, what is your data collection says that, you know, we lose a lot of people because they push below the poverty line, they have to sell their assets, they do not get better, and unfortunately they have to give up on life.
Basically, the research was basically to see which type of cancer is most prevalent.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Among women, there was breast cancer, and among males, it was lung cancer.
Okay.
And the probable cause for lung cancer was smoking, because in Pakistan, the smoking population is very high. While in female population, their breast cancer is very high.
Exactly. But are these very, you know, the treatments are very costly for the lung and the breast cancer as well?
For both of these cancers, the treatment was very high.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Among the patients that were coming in these 3 hospitals were from all the provinces, like from Balochistan, Sindh, Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and even from Kashmir.
Okay.
So then what I want to know over here is, what is the estimated cost of the treatment? First things first, I think we need to get it sorted as well. And we're only talking about private caregivers as well, or health providers.
Right. My research work was basically in those hospitals. I didn't,
Can you name those hospitals?
Nouri,
Yeah.
PIMS,
Okay.
and CMH.
Okay. So these are hospitals run by the government anyways.
Okay. My question is sort of a little different, but I'm pretty sure you know the exact right answer to this. Talk about, you know, health rights that the Constitution has for any of us, and then health facilitation as well.
The Constitution gives us the access to healthcare.
Yeah.
Access to healthcare. Okay, what does that mean?
Access to healthcare is basically if you're living in a house and and you have a nearby road.
Okay.
So it means you have access to healthcare.
Yeah, but I paid my taxes for that road. I mean, why wouldn't I? Yeah. Okay.
So we only have access. It's not that it's government's responsibility to provide us with facilitation
the provision
for
of
free.
healthcare is still not there.
Okay.
Oh. But that's sad,
But
right?
even though we're in a contract with the United Nations of universal healthcare coverage, which provides that every person has the right for financial protection while availing the healthcare.
All right. So I'm just going to come back to my question where actually she's interjected with one of hers.
I did. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly all right. You know, it's teamwork as well, and we just want the best for our viewers as well. So you mentioned about Nouri, you mentioned about PIMS, and you mentioned about CMH as well. All of these institutions being public, why do you think that they are still very expensive for people to have been pushed down the poverty line?
Right.
Because all of them had meager resources.
Okay.
Meager resources for their treatment. Most of them were laborers, farmers, business owners of small, just to get small
small
businesses, small business, like a shopkeeper or that's it.
No, but that's correct. I'm sorry, but I have to get into detail. Now, what my point over here is, for example, if I straight away walk into PIMS, you know, I just have to pay 5 rupees, they'll make a chit, and the rest of the treatment is for free.
But you'll have to go for your lab test.
Yeah, oh yeah. So
test.
and you have to pay for your test.
You have to pay for your test, like biopsy.
Okay, and what about chemotherapies and all of these things?
And chemotherapy as well.
Okay. You have to pay for chemotherapy?
Yes.
And how much do they charge for one chemotherapy?
One chemotherapy, it depends on which type of cancer you have.
Yeah, obviously. For example, lungs.
For example, if you have lungs, then approximately 30,000. One cycle.
For one sitting. Oh.
One.
And that we are talking about public hospitals.
Yes.
I mean, the segments of the society that we are talking about, I'm really not sure how they can even afford one of the cycles. But okay, Zainab, since you being a health economist, now we have already established that the problem is meager resources. Yeah. So let's just face it, I mean, even in the near future, the resources are going to be same. But you being a health economist, how do you feel like we can invest these resources in the right direction to get maximum output?
The government itself can use its resources in such a way by collection of taxes and everything. And by that, they can provide access to healthcare and provision to healthcare to the poor segment of the society. By putting on taxes on the rich class.
Okay. The ones that can
the ones that are affluent. They can basically afford it.
Okay.
And when a class that can afford it, they consider it as a luxury.
Yeah.
All right.
While the poor class, it is a necessity, the health care itself.
All right. So now I need to ask about the correlation in between the health economics and then the economics in general of a country as well. How do you think that they're correlated? Because I think that we really need to talk about it if we need to talk about development, if we need to progress. I think everything's going to come in handy.
It is correlated in a sense that human capital.
Yeah.
When you have a healthy people, healthy
Right.
citizens, then obviously you're going to have a healthy economy.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
did your research actually gives us the detail about how many people are generically healthy within Pakistan, or how many people unfortunately are sick or are falling sick? What are the ratios? What are the averages?
The average, basically the most prevalent type of cancer among males was lungs, like I said, and among females was breast cancer.
Okay.
Right.
And you can't deduce that whether the population is healthy or not. You need to have a country-wise health survey regarding the
Right.
cancer patients. And me as a student, I didn't have that
the access to that kind of
But still, we just wanted to ask, yes.
Yeah,
Okay, that is perfect.
access kind of information to.
Also, so Zainab, we always take pride in saying that we have 64% of youth. I mean, aged 15 to 30. But few years down the lane, they are going to be the eldest citizens.
Demographical change.
Right. Of
Yes.
course. I mean, imagine that again. We are not a healthy nation. We do
Yes.
not have enough resources, and we're not investing them properly. We just spoke about that. So where will we go? I mean, a few years later, what are we doing with ourselves?
We need to be very self-aware about ourselves.
Yeah.
What kind of disease that can be, that can
Be
that can
carried
spread
on.
in
Yeah.
an epidemic
Yeah.
level. Like, for example, cancer, we can take precautionary measures, we can go to the hospital, check ourselves out, and be self-aware out of ourselves. Like smoking, we need to be more
Yeah,
aware of it
Exactly.
and try to quit it.
And I think
And
that's
build
that's
a
what-
healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and I think that this is a wonderful point to wrap up the show too as well. But thank you very much for being with us. It was wonderful to
Absolutely.
to know that there are people who are actually working on health economics as well.
Yeah.
But very quickly, since you mentioned about men getting sick, and and majority of the time they're actually getting lungs cancer as well. So please make sure that you do not smoke. But then, other
Yes.
than that, on a lighter note, I've got one more thing. So Shiza, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And this question is, how do you think that you treat men? Do you think that you treat them rudely? Do you think that they need to be treated fairly? Or do you think that it's just fine, whatever?
I mean, the men that are related to me in any way, from my family or even my friends, of course, I speak to them nicely. Other, I don't even speak with. I don't know what sort of question. But anyway, yes, moving on. So, ladies
No, but there's a sole reason why I've asked you
please,
this.
please.
So, total population of, ladies and gentlemen, the globe is 7.8
I know where this is
billion.
going.
7.8 billion, out of which there's 5-point-some billion women, and then there are 2.2 billion men, out of which 1 billion, I think, about 66. And then the left 1 billion, a few million are in jail, a few million are gay, and a few million have mental illnesses, and a few million are priests as well. So there are only a few millions left. So please make sure that you treat them wisely. I think that's what I wanted to say.
Well, that's absolutely right. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this was probably yesterday or another day that we had Dr. Nosheen on our show, and she spoke about nutrition, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of you have been giving feedback on that, and you want to learn on what foods to eat, what foods to avoid. So from now on, very soon, hopefully, inshallah, we will be having a segment specifically, for that. So stay tuned to us, and if you learned anything, please write us on a Facebook page, which
It
is
is
with
the name of World This Morning.
on Twitter,
World This Morning without a G.
on Dailymotion on YouTube,
World This Morning, World This Morning.
and the repeat is going to be at
5 past 11 p.m. tonight. Till the next time, 1-3. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.